Hi everybody, I'm Tabitha and I just finished 5 more books. Okay, I just finished my second 5 books for the month of November, so we're going to do some book reviews. Don't forget that if you have an opinion about a book you see in this video, or if you want to recommend one based on something you see here, just drop a comment down below with the name of the book and maybe the author's name so I can add it to my TBR. Also, if you're recommending a book that you had a part in bringing to life, either as an author or a publishing company, don't forget to follow the link that you can find in the description to send me information about that book and possibly get it moved up my TBR. Let's get to it. All right, the 6th book that I read for the month of November is A Wind in the Door by Madeleine. This is the sequel to A Wrinkle in Time. It came out in 1976 and was published by Del Lauraleaf. This is an audiobook version by Random House Audio. This book is a middle grade fantasy book, and I had never read this, although I have read A Wrinkle in Time. Your synopsis. Charles Wallace is ill, and it will take a seemingly impossible series of tests to heal what ails him. So what didn't I like about this book? Well, the first thing I can say I didn't like about this one was the ending. This book is obviously setting up for the 3rd book in the series, and it didn't leave me with enough lingering questions that I'd actually even be interested in reading the 3rd one. Really, this is the same problem I had with the 1st book. I was satisfied enough in the ending and had no lingering questions left, which is the reason why it took me this long to get around to reading the 2nd one. I have a feeling I'll have the same problem with the 3rd one. I'm satisfied enough with the way this wrapped up, and I don't have a burning need to go out and get the 3rd one for more answers. Second thing I wasn't crazy about in this one is that there seems to be some timeline issues. Something about this timeline just in general feels off to me, but it's been too long since I've read the 1st one for me to really be sure. I suppose you could argue that any timeline issues that I feel could be because of time travel, but I feel like time travel wasn't really supposed to be the focus of any of these books. And it's not openly about time travel, so if that is the answer, it wasn't explicit enough. So really this just kind of made it seem like the time issues might have been an accident or they were just confusing. The last thing that I didn't like about this one is that it was really slow, and I wasn't expecting that because it's not something I personally thought A Wrinkle in Time suffered from. But this book needed to move quicker in between events, I think, to keep us interested. There wasn't enough side plots or things going on to keep you interested between major plot points, and it just made the book feel like it was dragging a lot. So what did I like about this one? Well, the primary reason why, of course, I read this one is because I really loved A Wrinkle in Time, and all of those characters are back and true to themselves in this book. I shouldn't say all. The Mrs. characters do not feature in this book, but Charles Wallace and Meg, they all feature in this book and they are true to themselves, and that's wonderful, and it's exactly what I read it for, and I did love that. It was a huge nostalgia boost. Second thing I loved about this one is there's an entire idea here, an entire central theme, and I don't want to spoil anything, that has to do with naming something. That has some deep, deep, deep meaning that you can apply, especially to today's society, and of course things going on with politics and individuality. So the whole concept of naming something could be applied on a much larger scale to a lot of things in modern society, and I absolutely loved that. I could see this having giant factors that have us look at personal pronouns in a new way or transgender people in a new way, and I just really, really loved that. You could read a lot into it and get a lot of emotional connection out of that. The third thing I liked about this book is the teamwork aspect. Sometimes in life, we get a chance to work on a team full of people who we already love and adore, which I would argue is what happened in A Wrinkle in Time. Meg got to team up with people she already had strong feelings for. But other times in life, we have to work on a team with people we'd rather not be teamed with at all, and that seems to be the message that we're tackling in this sequel. Meg is working with people she may not have chosen for herself, and I think that lesson that she learns is one that's passed on to the reader as well. So who do I think should read this one? If you haven't already read this book or haven't read it as an adult, but you liked A Wrinkle in Time, I think you should give this one a read. Focus on the naming. Think about those implications. I mean, it gave me goosebumps. The other people who I think might enjoy this one are in general people who absolutely love the first one because it takes you on another big journey with some of those same characters. And lastly, if you're the kind of reader who likes big themes in your fantasy stories, then I think you're going to love this one. My overall rating, I gave this one 4 stars. It could have been a little bit faster moving and probably would have been a 5 stars to me if it was, but the themes of this book are big enough that it sold me on it despite its slow start. So 4 stars for The Wind in the Door by Madeleine L'Engle. The next book I finished for the month of November is Red Alert by James Patterson and Marshall Karp. This is a 2008 book by Little Brown and Company. It is 338 pages, and this one is an adult age category mystery thriller. Your synopsis. This 5th book in the NYPD Red series stars Detective Zach Jordan, and this time Zach and his partner Kylie McDonald will set out to solve 2 crimes affecting the high-profile elite in New York. So what didn't I like about this one? I have said most of the same didn't like things about a lot of the NYPD Red series, so I'm not really sure why I keep coming back to them, but here we go again. This book has a lot of crass language for no reason at all. I don't have a problem with cussing. I've never really had a problem with cussing. Most of the time I don't even notice it. My brain almost naturally just moves past it or relates it to another word. But it doesn't seem to serve a purpose in this book other than pure shock value. And that's a first for me from this series. Normally, I have a lot of other complaints, but the crass language doesn't really factor in. So it almost seems like he upped his game this time for no reason other than shock value. The second thing I didn't particularly like about this one is that there's always been this sexual tension angle that they play between Zach and Kylie, but honestly, in this 5th book in the series, by now it feels completely overplayed and repetitive. It seems like it's been billed as Zach literally cannot get over this, which is pushing on an obsession, and at this point, it's almost uncomfortable to read it. The third thing I didn't like about this one is the villain confessions. I don't have a problem with the stereotypical villain thing of a villain who sits you down and tells you their entire plot and everything they plan to do, but that being said, it seemed overdone in this book. Made it a little unrealistic, and it made the book seem kind of cheesy. So what did I like about this one? Well, in similar style to all of James Patterson's books, it has short chapters, which means this is a nice fast read. It means you're going to get to the end of a chapter and think, oh, it's only 3 pages in the next one, and this is on a cliffhanger, I'm going to keep going. So you do get through this thriller very quickly. The second thing I like about this one is Kylie. I may not be the biggest fan of Zach, but I think I keep coming back to the series because I actually do like Kylie. She's reckless. She's your stereotypical cowboy cop, except that she's a woman, which is actually a huge twist on the cowboy cop trope that I didn't even know I wanted. And I really like that in her. I like that she's reckless. I like that she's a little dangerous. It makes her fun and interesting. The third thing I liked about this book is that it does have satisfying twists and turns, which of course is what you're looking for in a mystery thriller. This one ends up following 2, maybe 3, possibly 4 cases, and it brings in a lot of twists as they all turn together. I liked following all the threads. I liked trying to figure it out. And honestly, I really kind of like the final twist at the ending. So who do I think should read this one? You do not have to read the NYPD Red books in order. But if you like the idea of detectives dedicated to serving the elite in New York, the NYPD series might be something that you like. And this happens to be the 5th book in the series. If you like the idea of your traditional cowboy cop trope being spun on its head and being a female, you might like this book. If you like your mysteries to be fast-paced and you don't mind if the police procedure is a little bit far-fetched and outside of the norm, you might like the NYPD Red series. Overall, my rating for this one, I went 3 stars. This might have been a 2-star book for me because of some of the problems I was seeing, but I think that final twist turn at the end was interesting enough that it brought this up to a 3. So 3 stars for Red Alert by James Patterson and Marshall Karp. The next book I read for the month of November is Screamcatcher, Web World by Christy J. Breedlove. This is a 2019 publication by Fire and Ice Young Adult Books. It is a young adult fantasy book, and it is 219 pages. Your synopsis. Jory Pike is having horrible nightmares and is willing to give a dreamcatcher a try. But this dreamcatcher is packed with ancient nightmares, and when it implodes, it will pull her into the folds, locking her in an alternate universe where nightmares reign. Can she find her way to the center of the web? So what didn't I like about this one? Well, the first thing I can say I didn't like is that in general, I wanted more character development. I still feel like I have burning questions about who these characters are and what they want out of life at the end of this book. I wanted to be more connected to them than I was. The second thing I can say I wasn't crazy about in this one is the repetition. I wanted more variety in what fears and nightmares we kept encountering, and it seemed like there would have been a good opportunity here to explore a lot of less common nightmares, and this kind of missed the boat on that. And I felt like it was a lot of repetitive and too much that was alike for this book. The third thing I can say I didn't like about this one is that I wanted more description. So some of the scenes or situations that we find ourselves in were actually really hard for me to picture. I understand that's probably because we're dropped into nightmares, and so they should feel a little unrealistic, but it was hard for me to put myself in those shoes and imagine what kind of horrible nightmarish scenario we were actually in a few spots. So I really wanted more description to help me imagine that. So what did I like about this one? Well, the first thing, and this is a big one because I really, really liked this, is that the Native American lore that runs through the back of this book is amazing. So this book follows Chippewa legends and they're woven into the story and woven throughout the story, more than just the Dreamcatchers. There's other ones woven into the story. And as far as I know, they're very accurate. I found that I was really enjoying reading about them. Felt like I was getting a history lesson, but not in a boring way of getting it. It's a good delivery of it, and that I'm going to remember these things and I'm going to think about them often, but yet I was still interested in the story and I didn't have to step away from the story to learn that history. So it was a really cool delivery on that to bring in some of those legends. Second thing I liked about this one is that the action in this one is very, very well done. Taking a book into the landscapes of nightmares really allows the author to sort of bend the rules of what's possible and play with the fears of their characters or of their audience. I thought the author here did a really good job of incorporating some big fears right into this central plot, and it made for some really intense action sequences. The last thing I can say that I liked about this one, and this is a big one, I really, really, truly loved this. This ending is incredibly well done. I don't want to spoil anything. I just want to say that if you're a fan of solid endings that leave you satisfied, that you don't necessarily see coming, but that you're very happy with, this book has a solid ending, and I would recommend it for that. So who do I think should read this one? If you are intrigued by Native American lore, Dreamcatchers, and other, I think you should give this book a shot. If you are a reader who likes stories about nightmares or the horrors we imagine coming to life, I think you're going to love this one. Overall, my rating for this one, I went 3 stars. This is a good book, although I would say it has a slightly more niche audience. You have to be okay with the nightmare and the horror angle, or this one might be a little too much for you. If you love nightmares and horrors, I think you're going to love this one, which is why I went 3 stars for this niche audience book. So 3 stars for Screamcatcher Web World by Christy J. Breedlove. The next book I read for the month of November is Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. This is an adult age category mystery thriller. It was published in 2014 by Berkeley Books, and it is 460 pages. Your synopsis: a tragedy at an elementary school parent event will force everyone's secrets to come out of their dark hiding spots. Someone is dead, but what really happened? Just a warning, I do want to say really quickly that this book does, if you haven't already read it, it does deal with abuse and bullying and some other sensitive topics that could be tough for some readers to get through. So what didn't I like about this book? Well, the first thing I can say is that some of the relationships between characters in this book are a little cliche. I understood pretty quickly that that was a tool this book was using for shock and drama of the story, and cliches obviously have to come from somewhere, but that didn't get by me that we do have a lot of cliche relationships in this one. The second thing I can say I didn't like about this one is also something I believe the author did on purpose as a tool to prove a point, but it doesn't mean it bugged me any less. And that is, there are some catty women in this book. In my opinion, it is one of her main unspoken points of this book. I think she's using it. Some of them it's a coping mechanism. Some of them I think it's a face or something they're putting on. I think she's trying to make a point with it, but it doesn't mean that you can always easily look past that symbolism and ignore the fact that these women are being annoying. It is a little annoying at some points. Third thing I didn't like about this one is that it is packed with drama. It utilizes schoolyard style drama with parents as a way of kind of adding stakes to the problem and increasing that tension a little bit. I can see this being a problem for some people. I can see it annoying people because of that schoolyard-esque kind of feel to it, which makes it feel kind of immature. However, I will say, like the catty women, I think this was a tool that Liane Moriarty was using. I think the point here is to kind of shine a light on some of the things that we talk about and focus on as a society. And I also think, having worked in schools for years, there's a lot of truth behind some of this stuff, although of course she's using it on a pretty dramatic spectrum. So what did I like about this one? Because I had heard some really good things from some of you about this book, and I have to say it didn't disappoint. The first thing I liked about this one is that the twists and the revelations to this one are nothing short of amazing. I loved this book. There's surprises around every page of this book. You're going to definitely be shocked by the ending at how this one comes out, and that's exactly what you look for in a mystery book. Second thing I liked about this one is that it does explore a variety of different family structures. So we're going to have school parents accurately portrayed as single mothers. We have happy families. We have unhappy families. We have healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships. And not everybody is what they appear to be. And I do love that she was dealing with that and kind of putting that on blast. The third thing I like about this one is there are a lot of emotions and anxiety displayed through some of the characters, and it's very well written and very descriptive. Specifically, a lot of the women and even the ones who are in abusive relationships, their thought processes and the things that they're going through are written in such a way that you can relate to them and understand them, even if what they're going through isn't something that you've gone through. So I really liked the way it was written. It's very raw, it's very open, and I very much enjoyed that. Who do I think should read this one? If you're a reader who likes a good solid mystery with loads of twists and turns, I don't think you'll be disappointed in this one. I also think if you are a fan of books with shocking endings, but are still somehow things that you feel could actually happen, so shocking yet realistic endings, I think that you're going to like this book. Overall, my rating for this one, I went 5 stars. The language in this and the descriptions in this just really had me turning pages at an incredibly fast rate, and I have no choice but to say that I absolutely loved it because of how much and how fast I devoured this book. So 5 stars to Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. All right, and for the 10th book that I finished in the month of November, I pulled out an old favorite that I had not read in childhood. So you, if you're a regular watcher of the channel, you may remember back a while ago, and I'll put the link in the description, we did a video where I asked friends around me and family members questions about my reading habits to see who could get it right. One of the questions was, what is my favorite book? And that brought up a whole discussion among my family about whether or not I've actually read this book in a long time. So this was a reread of my favorite book, The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This is a middle grade fiction book originally published in 1910. Fun fact, this was originally published in a series of 10 serialized issues of the American Magazine. It was then published as a book in 1911 by Frederick A. Stokes Company. But this edition that I happened to read was published in 2005 from Barnes & Noble Classic, and the edition I have is 238 pages, which includes some extra stuff like information about the author's life. Your synopsis. Mary Lennox is sent to live with surviving relatives in England following a tragedy and finds secrets that will forever change her. So what didn't I like about this one? I have to be honest with you, this is one of my favorite books of all time. So at reading as an adult, I had to make sure to turn on my critical mindset and look for things that maybe wouldn't stand up to the test of time. None of this bothered me, and I still found so much to love about this book. But here are some things you might not like if you're reading it for the first time in today's world as an adult. The first one is the Yorkshire language in this book is written phonetically. It can be very hard to read, and I could definitely see it bothering some people. So my tip is, if you have a paragraph or a sentence, you have a hard time figuring out what they said, read it out loud. That helps me figure it out. The second thing that might not stand the test of time and might bother you if you were to read this today is that this book has religious undertones, but it doesn't come outright and call out the religion. So traditionally, readers have a little bit of a problem with that. We either like no religious undertones in our books whatsoever, or we like you to be completely explicitly obvious about what religion you're speaking about. We don't tend to like it if you bring us religious undertones that we can't name as one religion or another. And that's kind of what this book does. So you could definitely read religion into it, but it's not openly called out. Again, I don't have a problem with that, but I could see that some people might. If you're looking for a comparison, I would say this is similar to like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, how you can draw religious parallels to Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, even though it's not explicitly called out in the text. The third thing that may not stand the test of time on this classic right here is there is definitely period racism in this one. So you have to remember that this book was originally written in 1910. I'm not saying you can forgive it. All of that, most of that is completely unforgivable, and some of it does appear almost casually and throwaway in the text. That definitely doesn't stand the test of time. So why is this one of my favorite books, and what do I absolutely love about this book? The first thing is this book not only includes, but actually applauds curiosity in children. This was a favorite for me growing up specifically because of this. Too often, I think, in life, curiosity for kids is something they feel like is punished. So if you're sneaking around in things, you get in trouble. If you're trying to be sneaky or ask questions about something, sometimes it can come across as incredibly annoying. But in this book, Mary is an incredibly curious character, but her curiosity is actually rewarded throughout the entire book. And not just for her. Her curiosity actually helps out other people in this book. I think it's a great message about how being curious and searching for things in our world and asking questions about our world are actually good qualities for children to have. The second thing that makes this one of my absolute favorite books is the friendship angle. You have main characters in this book who are children who learn through this book what it looks like and how to develop healthy friendships. And that's an important lesson for anybody, kids or adults, to learn, is what a healthy friendship looks like and how we can develop them. So having a book where our main characters don't naturally know those lessons and learn them together is incredibly important. The last thing I can say I loved about this one is the symbolism. I remember learning about symbolism when I was older, maybe I was in high school, and I remember going back and rereading The Secret Garden and writing an entire essay about the symbolism you can find in The Secret Garden, comparing the garden itself to Colin, and even to Mary, and even to Mr. Craven. Really, the symbolism around their relationship and around their personalities and how they healed each other is so similar to what happens in the garden. It's amazing. So if you're looking for a great book that deals with symbolism, or that will help you learn what symbolism is, or that will give you good examples of symbolism dealing with personal issues, I think this is a good one for that. So who do I think should read this one? If you love books with beautiful language built on friendships and learning who you are, you can't go wrong with this one. If you are a reader who believes that friendship can truly save a person, you'll love this book. My reading, this remains one of my absolute favorite books. It gave me all the good feels when I was reading it, so I have no choice but to go 5 stars for The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Okay, that's it for me and the next 5 books that I read in November. Truthfully, November is almost over, and I like to make sure I post this at least at the very latest by the last Tuesday in the month, so you probably won't get another review video for me this month. I don't think I'm going to get another 5 books read. So that means you need to hit subscribe so you know when I am back. Keep plotting the path to your dreams, and I will see you next time. Bye!